Hey, everybody, and thanks for joining us again for the Bry Samua Show.
Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you came back. We appreciate it so much. And look what we got. We got a guest today.
So to start, I'm Samua.
I'm Bry.
And this is Dr. Leo Kormanik. No relation. Just kidding. He's my husband. I may or may not have twisted his arm to pop on the episode.
We've got some wonderful information for you because for those of you doing Dopey, this is going to be critical. And for those of you not doing Dopey, this will be something that you can think about when you're thinking about doing something crazy like the Dopey.
Yeah. So one of our episodes, we touched upon how we're going to be doing Dopey again. We got to both do the inaugural Dopey way back in 2014. And one of us is crazier than the other and thought it was a great idea to do it again.
I don't know who that would be, but it was, I'm still second guessing myself.
Like a split second of like a happy moment. She saw the registration come up and it's, oh, we should do this. And then we both sign up and then we're like texting each other like, crap, we got into Dopey.
Done it again. What have we done?
So Dr. Leo comes to us. He has Ohio Sports Chiropractic as a practice. He has MindBody Marathon, his own podcast, and then a YouTube channel, running rehab with Ohio Sports Chiropractic as well. So tons of information on running. And he himself was a pro runner. Tell us.
Yeah. So thank you guys for having me. This is a long time coming. I mean, I feel like we've kind of been sitting on this show idea for a minute. So it's been
a long time. Yeah.
So it's fun to finally kind of see it into fruition for sure. So thanks for having me.
I know.
Yes, I know. I am the first official guest. It's awesome. So like you said, running's pretty much what I do 90% of my day. I often joke I see the bad side of running because I treat runners all day long with injuries. I myself have dealt with numerous injuries. I've done a lot of different events from ultras to, all out miles. So definitely have a wide gamut of experience personally. And then professionally, helped novice runners all the way to professional athletes, about as darn fast as you can get. So definitely have a wide gamut of experience on the physician side of it as well. So that's what I bring to the table.
So when you think about running and you think about somebody who might be thinking about starting to run, they haven't done it before, but they're watching this podcast and they're like, this sounds really fun. I want to do a Disney race. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting concept because if we break it down, running is the most advanced non-learned behavior we do. And so what that really means is when somebody's like, yeah, I just want to start running. Well, a lot of times that actually sounds very appealing because it is just so simple. You just go and run. You don't have to get a gym membership. You don't have to buy a bike. You don't have to do this or that. And you have to get crazy clothes or anything. You just kind of go for a run. Because of that, because of the easy entrance into running, most people don't really think about their running form and how they're doing it. So if you just jog across the parking lot to get a shopping cart, well, that's one thing. You can jog bad, you can run bad. But if you're jogging for miles on end or running for miles on end, well, you better play by the rules. And so at that point, it behooves you, if you're intending to get into running, go online, watch some videos, try to learn some things about running form, try to get your body stronger so that you feel a little bit more comfortable. Listen to some of the videos. If you see a regular physical therapist or a trainer or a chiropractor, tell them specifically that you're intending to run. What are some muscles you should strengthen? What are some things you should pay attention to? Just put your ear to the floor. Don't just expect to just put on a pair of shoes and just go for it because you're probably going to end up with knee issues. You're probably going to end up with back issues. And, like old school doctors are just going to be like, yeah, running's just bad for your knees. And they're dead wrong because most people that have those situations are just running wrong. So I think it's just important to understand how easy it is to get into running. And because of that, there is a little bit of a trapdoor with it.
When you think about shoes, what would you recommend? Because you and I just went through this. I had a bad pair of shoes that ended up hurting me. So what would be your recommendation on if somebody's looking for shoes? Because you said they don't need anything, but they need good shoes.
Yeah. So that's true. So you do need a good pair of shoes. I should have course correct on that. But I think the easiest thing to think about there is that don't overthink it. There's a lot of marketing and branding out there. So don't just go after the newest, coolest thing. Listen to your body is probably the biggest thing. So go to a running shoe store. Don't buy them online. Don't buy them on how they look. Go to a running shoe store and start there. I'm not saying you have to buy it at the running shoe store, but go there, try them on, see what you like best in terms of what feels natural. And try a wide gamut of things. Maybe tell the person that's working with you your history of injuries, if you have any, if you've had surgery, if you've had, potential ankle sprains or, any sort of diagnosis in the legs. And then they'll be able to kind of use that as a starting point for you to pay attention to things on how and what shoe works there. Once you try the shoe on and you're like, okay, I like this type of shoe, this feels right to me, don't overthink it. Don't worry about how it looks, because every shoe company has different colors and different models and all that stuff. But just kind of get into a category of shoes. And what that means is you're really looking for like the drop or the profile of the shoe. Is it high, meaning it's got a steep drop? Think high heels. That's a high profile. Mid would obviously be mid, and low would be 0 to 4 millimeters. So they're kind of measured in millimeters. So 0 to 4 is a low profile shoe. A high profile shoe is typically north of 8 millimeters. Now, this matters a lot because this doesn't have to do with the stack height of the shoe. So a lot of times people are like, well, maybe I'm a little heavier, or maybe my knees hurt or my back hurts, so it kind of looks like I should have a lot of marshmallow under my foot. Well, that's a stack height. That's not the same as drop. So you can have a low drop shoe that has a lot of stack height, or you can have a high drop shoe that has no stack heights. There's all sorts of variety out there. So that's why it's really important that you just try on and see what feels the best. Because studies show that physicians can talk about what shoes might work, but in the end, what makes people the most efficient with selecting a shoe in terms of what's right for their body is actually just the feel of it. And it's just that simple.
And then there's people like me that tries on 7 different kinds of shoes. And I'm like, they all feel the same. Thankfully, I have this guy at home that I can be like, here, tell me what shoe I should get. I'm like the worst. Another quick drop, because you mentioned just putting your ear to the floor, figuring out about running form. Quick little plug, unintentional, intentional, is Dr. Leo has a great book, Faster Without Fail. Great read, and it will give you lots of practical, like hands-on things that you can do to at least to put you in the right direction. And if you're local to us, you're welcome to come to Ohio Sports Chiropractic, and he can give you more details and go more in depth. If you're not, then you can kind of take that information from the book and find some more. Same or virtually. Oh, that's right. We are fancy now and doing virtual Zoom calls.
I got mine from Amazon too.
Yeah. And then you can do virtual appointments with Dr. Leo. But then the YouTube page, I tell people about the YouTube page everywhere all the time, because even like on movie sets and stuff, because we'll have people that are injured with different things. The Running Rehab Ohio Sports Chiropractic YouTube page has so many great videos that, again, you can do at home if you're just starting and, a couple runs in and your knee starts to bug you, or a couple runs in and your left shoulder. There's some good videos that you can find to kind of get you started there. Fun tidbit about our relationship here is that, so Dr. Leo, my husband, it's weird calling you Dr. Leo every 5 seconds. He, like we mentioned, pro runner, ran 2:17 marathon, qualified for Olympic trials at one point. And at that point, I had ran more marathons than he did. And yet, whenever people would ask, like at the clinic when I'm working, and people like, oh, so are you a runner too? My immediate answer is always no. But yet at one point I had ran more marathons than you.
Gosh, I did not know that. That's news to me.
For
Hilarious.
being technical, I ran farther than 26, more than you up to that point, but not an actual race.
Well, yeah.
No. But that's what's amazing about you, though, is that you just shoot from the hip, and it's just so easy for you. You make it look easy. I'll tell you that.
Negative. I have seen some of the videos that you get of me running in front of you, and it does not look easy or pretty for that matter. But I did twist his arm, and for our wedding, we did first run Disney run ever. There's always these memes that come around on online. I don't know if you've seen them, where they're like, before you marry somebody, find out if their family either runs races or drinks cocktails for holidays. And I'm like, hey, we do both.
You guys were a match made in heaven then. Perfect. It's perfect. So when you think about races, you're gearing up for Dopey as well, because you're going to be doing that with us.
Amen.
And so, yeah. Now, do you?
Prayers needed.
We're like, oh crap, and he goes, amen.
He's like, I can go out tomorrow and tackle that. Do you look at it differently? Because there's going to be character stops. It's going to be a little bit more fun. Like you're doing New York this week, right?
Yeah.
Oh shoot. We'll cut that out.
Oh, it's okay.
No, it's okay.
Is it all right? Okay.
It won't be evergreen, but it's fine.
All right. You're doing New York this week, which is just an amazing race. How do you compare that to like doing something like a Dopey? I mean, because they've got to be different in some way in the way that you mentally prepare for it or think about it, or is it really the same? It's just the same training.
For me personally, or just in general?
I'd say for you, personally.
For me personally, I'm running Dopey with Samua, my wife. So that's just fine.
I run 3 more miles because I didn't break a sweat.
I don't actually say that. I don't actually. Yeah. I mean, like, New York. So I'm just going to go and, kind of a blend of have a good time, but run a little fast.
Yeah.
And then relative. It's all relative. But Dopey, it's like, the point there is to just run it with my wife in costume. And so it's just going to be a different experience. And I think that's a lot easier to just shoot from the hip because it's just time on your feet essentially and less cardiovascular and muscular demand. But with that being said, it is literally time on your feet. So what I did actually do that is different to show as respect for the situation of Dopey is I did sign up for a 50K in December to just basically put me out there for 6 hours, just a reason to just be on my feet for 6 hours.
What's the 50K that you're doing December? Is that the one that I'm doing the 2 days back to back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Aren't you happy I know my own race schedule?
Yeah. So, and that's maybe one thing that I do. I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest thing about Dopey is obviously, the elephant in the room is how early you have to wake up and how much it compromises your routine, your circadian rhythm, and your sleep. That's just the biggest thing. That's the hardest thing there is. Like, yeah, there's the mileage, but people are just tough. Like people, when people do 100 miles, they don't actually run 80 miles in preparation for 100 miles. Like if you run a marathon, you might get to 20 miles. So that's kind of 2/3 of the marathon. So it's like, you would never do that for a 100 miler. So people on a very consistent basis, normal people, accountants, lawyers, dentists, non-professional runners on a daily basis do these crazy things fine. So it's all in the mind, and it's just getting your mind right for challenging yourself in this way. So, what I would say is, for Dopey, the biggest thing is like just learning how to do things back to back. So but basically, in the 6 months build up or the 4 to 6 months build up, at least once, if not twice a month, you should do 2 longer runs back to back on the weekends. Like you should just do that. So one run might be a 10 miler and then the next run may be an 18. So like on Saturday you run 10, Sunday you run 18. And then maybe the next week you do 10 and 20, or, like early in the sequence, maybe 10 and 14 or something like that. But something along those lines where you're on your feet back to back, challenging yourself, amidst a normal daily volume of running.
And I will tell you that one of the hardest things is getting up. That is definitely it. And they're starting at 4:30 now.
I know. I didn't even know that until we recorded our previous episode. I thought it was still 5 or 5:30.
They decided
I think
to start
when we
at
first started doing them,
4:30.
it was 5:30.
Yeah.
The races are just the marathon.
I think all of them.
Yes.
Because they just
Disney.
have a consistent time. So 4:30 every morning. So it's like a half hour. And it was 5:30 when we first started.
Yeah, I think it was 5:30. Then they moved it to 5, and then
Yeah.
now apparently it's 4:30.
Yeah.
Darn Disney. They did that just to stop people from riding rides
I think so.
at
Well, you
the
know what?
end
I
of
think
the
that's true.
marathon.
Yeah, exactly.
People there was like these unofficial race challenges. Like if you could get on single rider at Yeti ride, Everest. And then some people would ride the Mexico boat ride and then get a frozen margarita just before you finish. So if you're doing Dopey for the first time, that's kind of your unofficial challenge there.
And I would say too, while you're going through Epcot, you need some sort of a beverage at the end, whether it's a shot in Mexico.
Yeah, the frozen margarita in Mexico.
Margarita, whatever, because at that point, you're home free. You're so done at that point that you could afford it.
So one of the things you touched upon is how much running is mental. And even for Disney, that is the case. We talked about one of our episodes, Bry and I recently, how yes, like you get to run through all the parks. And yes, you have all of these characters, but you're also running on highway roads a lot and stinky places at Disney, which that can be helpful getting you to run faster to get out of there. So it's not all this glitz towards, to keep you motivated. And I know personally, I did a full marathon, my first trail run ever with my brother in July. And when I say trail run, like there's literal steps at mile 19 that we still had to go up. Like, it's ridiculous. It's dumb. And then I ran a fairly flat half marathon, about a month later? And it sucked. And like from the moment that I started the race, I was at my first step and I'm thinking, I can't do this, even though I had just done a full a month before. And I hadn't ran at all in between the two of them. So that was part of the problem. And then two, like mentally, I was already going into it with all this weight on my mind with like different things going on in our life at the time. And it was just bad. And then, but physically, I feel like, and I said to Leo, like, I feel just as bad as when I finished a 6+ hour trail marathon, running a 2-hour half. Michelle Baker, I love you.
Well, I think that's another important point, because I think a lot of people have this fallacy in their head that they do have to train on concrete or asphalt in preparation for a road marathon. And that I actually disagree with a lot. I think yeah, sure, if you want to do that, that's fine. But a road marathon will absolutely beat you up more than a trail marathon. There's just no question about it. And it doesn't have anything to do with like which one's harder or whatever. It has everything to do with the fact that when you're on a trail, you are using just a wider variety of muscles. It's just that simple. And when you're on the road, straight path, very predictable surface, there's very little variance with muscle activation. You're not having to, every step is about exactly the same. Whereas on a trail marathon, there are no two steps that are the same because of all the surface changes in surface and undulations. So that just creates a wider distribution of muscle activation versus just hitting the same muscles over and over for many hours on end. So I think the most important thing is to learn how to run, doing some of your longer runs. It doesn't have to even be on pavement. It can be on like something like a crushed limestone surface or something like that. Or if you have to, even the treadmill, because it is kind of in the winter heading into those months. But you do have to learn how to run consistently on the same muscle groups over and over and over. But I do think that's that's good for the longer runs. But I do think during your weekly runs, and then maybe even some of the shorter runs on the weekend, that's kind of butting up against the longer runs. Like if you do a 10 and 14 or something like that, the 10 miler can be on trails or something like that, where you have wide variety of activation. And I think it's important for you to potentially change the different surfaces. All the research shows that variety of surface is key. So if you are changing the surfaces, then you're actually going to be able to train at a higher volume. And in the end, running is a richer get rich sport. So it's like the more running you do, the easier it becomes, the more you do. So anything you can do that allows you to bump up the daily or the weekly volume, that's going to just have the most benefit versus being, hell bent on a certain surface.
The other thing too that I would recommend is if you've got a high school around you, they've got a track. You can go there. You'll feel safe for like women who may not want to run in a trail sometimes by themselves. They've got that option. That's going to give you that running trail. And then you can go on the trail later. But you've got some options there too. So think about that local high school, junior high around you. Definitely hit it up.
Yeah, I've had some insane friends like Sheila. Remember Sheila Plesha?
Yeah.
She was training for a marathon that was in February. And I remember she went to the Macedonia Rec Center, which I think their like indoor like track is like, I don't know, it's tiny. And she would tell me like, oh, I have to do 100 and something laps. And she did. Like I would last
That's
3
what
laps.
I did for my first marathon.
Yeah, you're insane.
I was at Cuyahoga Falls, the old one, and it was 13 times around for a mile. And I had a clicker. And every time I'd hit a certain
That's
spot,
crazy.
I'd click it.
I try to run.
It was awful, but it worked. And I did good at the marathons.
Yeah, in front of
It was
our
awful.
house is a 1-mile loop. And I try to do a 5K doing that. And literally after the first loop, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going in the house. I'm just done. And I've never been successful in doing that.
It was nice though, because they would switch you around. So, with something like that, there was a little bit of a slope. So if you did that the whole time, and then they would have you go the opposite way, maybe the next day. So at least it evened out a little bit. But that was my training because it was winter,
Kudos to you. I did not have that mental fortitude. So something that came to mind when you were talking a little bit about something just a second ago there is for people who are running, like new to running, whether Dopey is their first race or not, but they're newer. And so they're still kind of getting their sea legs underneath them, learning the sport. And one of the things that really stresses people out about Disney more so than any other race, even though every race has this, is the cutoff. And the lovely balloon ladies. For somebody who is right at the cusp, or they're just, or they maybe they're not even at the 16-minute cutoff, but maybe they run 13, 14-minute miles, but they want to be able to have time to take pictures or whatever. What are some things they can incorporate into their training to maybe help them speed up?
So you're saying the balloon ladies cutoff is 16 minutes a mile?
The Disney cut. The balloon ladies are not the cutoff. We had this conversation at a podcast.
I'm just trying to like throw that in.
I know these poor balloon ladies. They're like, people have nightmares about them. They're actually there to be a friendly reminder that you want to be with us or in front of us.
Yeah.
And then the Disney buses come out and cut people off.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, like, the first point of, when you start thinking about running faster and you're trying to break a cutoff is, yeah, you obviously want to training, run faster, right? But I think a lot of people overblow that a little bit too much. I mean, in the end, even if you just kind of go out and do easy runs, like even on race day, you will actually just run faster because there's adrenaline, there's momentum, there's just like a lot of energy. So, but what I would really incorporate is something that's easy to incorporate is if it's your first thing and you are concerned about a cutoff, then probably learn how to work in some walk breaks. So like working with like the Gallowalk system with Jeff Galloway. I mean, I think that's smart because then that just allows your heart rate to just drop and then allows your muscles to just stay recovered. And then you can just sort of stay on top of it. And you can always create a variety of walk distances during the run. So that way, like if you're suffering a little bit more in the middle of the marathon, well, you just walk a little bit more. And then maybe you can create a little bit of a buffer by starting out the race a little faster with a little bit more runs. So I think that's an easy thing to do. I think another thing you can do in training is doing fartleks, which is basically just like if you're running like a mile, well, you might within that mile, say you're running a 10-minute mile, maybe you run hard for 2 minutes and then not so hard for a minute and hard for 2 minutes and not so hard for a minute and just kind of like cycle through that a couple of times during your runs. And what that does is that teaches your brain how to utilize a broader resource of muscles, how to basically lift the knees a little higher, get off your foot a little quicker. And then all of a sudden your brain will go, oh, okay, well, this is what you want to do. I get it now. I get that this is a different, more efficient form. And so it'll likely apply that to in other regular runs. So then the other thing you can add in to kind of complement all of this is once a week, you can add in all-out hill sprints.
I was about to ask you that.
Where
I know
you just
talk about
do,
that.
this is probably the easiest thing to fix your form. These are aerobic, so meaning they don't require any oxygen. So you're going to go 4 all-out 8 seconds uphill. So you want to be on a pretty steep hill if you can. And you want full recovery. So you want 2 minutes between each rep. And don't go longer than 8 seconds. The point of it is to be like a kid on a playground. Like you're just flailing your arms, you're just running all out like it's balls to the wall for 8 seconds. And what this does is this creates a really strong neurological stimulus to activate a broader sequence of muscles. And this is just absolutely does wonders for waking up different parts of the nervous system and different parts of the muscular system that if you're doing a race for the first time, you probably haven't activated in a very long time.
Something just came to mind as you're explaining.
Oh, by the way, you would do that after easy runs once a week.
So one of the things that I just got back to doing recently, the last couple of weeks consistently, is sprints on the treadmill for different reasons, like health benefit reasons that my body responds well to. Yeah. Is there
fartlek is basically HIIT training,
right? But is there because then after my couple runs after that at home on the road, I did end up being a bit faster than I have been in the same area because I tend to just go out the door.
Yeah, it's muscle memory.
I was going to ask you that. So if somebody, let's say they run like a 15-minute mile and they're trying to get to 14, would there be benefit for them to setting the treadmill at like a 13.5, 14 and doing those repetitives for the muscle memory aspect of it and being so controlled?
You mean like specifically doing it on a treadmill,
Right.
which holds you to that pace? The easy answer is yes. The better answer is no. The better answer is no, because when you're running on the treadmill, studies show that you are activating a higher proportion of your posterior chain, specifically your hamstring and calves, which obviously you're not doing in a race. But you need to act, because if anybody's run a marathon, everybody knows like what's the thing that hurts the most afterwards? It's your quads by far. So anything you can do to load your quads the most during training is going to be beneficial. A treadmill just flat out doesn't load the quads because you're just keeping up with the belt. So your hamstrings and calves get a higher proportion of load versus your quads on a normal run. So the treadmill just isn't a great option. So it's still better to just go outside. So I like Bry's idea of going to the track, that would be a great thing to do, because then you have a structured 400 meters. The inside lane is 400 meters or a quarter mile. And basically you can just do the math on it. Well, if you want to run, a 16-minute mile, well, you got to run, 4 minutes per lap essentially. And so you can kind of do the math on that in your own head in terms of just timing it out. So you could just go to the track and run a hard lap and then jog an easy lap, and run a hard lap and jog an easy lap, and just kind of make it that simple. But I mean, again, these Disney races are coming up in the winter, and if you're in the north, like we will be, so a lot of times you'll be on the treadmill. So that's not a terrible option, but it's not the best answer.
Cool. So when I think about running hills, it hurts my head, but I will tell you that you have to run hills before Disney, because while it seems like it's going to be really easy, there are those exit ramps that we go off on.
Yes, and there's usually one of the toy soldier or 3 sergeants screaming at you.
Yeah, and it's,
at least one of the hills, and they literally will make fun of you and challenge you to push-ups.
Yeah, it never ends. It really is quite daunting, right? So you've got to be prepared for that. It's not going to be just, I think people go into Disney sometimes thinking this is going to be so much fun, it's going to be easy, and then they hit that hill and they're like, what is happening? So you've got to be ready for that. So I think hill training would be really good, and that's something that I've been doing more of lately, because I know that, and I didn't do that before, and it was a bummer for me that I didn't.
Definitely strengthens you a lot. So for people listening that are in the middle of the training, you've touched upon increasing the mileage, doing a couple long runs. What can they do through that process, through the peaking of their training, increasing mileage, increasing the double days, to ensure they get to race weekend injury-free?
Well, let's kind of touch real quickly on the hill idea. Even if it was just a flat race, it would still be somewhat beneficial to still train on hills. That's speed work in disguise, as we say. And it's healthier on the spine. It's healthier on the joints to kind of have that up and down. And it's just a smart thing to do in general. So go out of your way to what I typically, like when I was running at a high level, what I like to do is when I'm doing workouts, I would typically do them on flatter runs. But when I'm on easy days, I would try to make the course as grueling as possible, because I just know I'm going to run easy anyway, so I don't really care what my pace is. And then that way I kind of build in this hidden strength where I'm just, not only am I working my cardio system, but I'm just getting stronger on those easy days, because I know I'm just kind of plodding around town anyways.
Yeah, if you live in our area, then if you just go out your door, 90% of us will hit hills and get them of those hard runs.
But that's a great point that you mentioned, though, because you think, well, 1, it's Disney, and 2, it's Florida. So yeah, it's going to be flat. And it's just not. Like those access roads are just like all around, and they're circuitous.
They're always at the end. Yeah. Always. There's one at the end.
Yeah, they're tricky. So basically a question about staying healthy into the cycle. The biggest thing is understanding how to properly train the body. So throughout the training cycle, it's important to make sure that you take no more than 2 days off in a row of running. If you get sick and something happens, or you travel, or life happens and you have to do that, well, then just know that when you get back into running, you have to cut back your volume. So if your plan called for 20 miles and it called for 30 miles the next week, and you didn't run that 30-mile week, don't go to the 35 the week after. Like, scale it back to 25 or 20. And it's really important that you just understand that, because a lot of people would just want to stay on schedule, and even when they are fighting sickness and fighting all this other stuff. So most training plans that you get online, or a good coach writes up,
which Dr. Leo is also a great running coach. Another little PR plug for him here. He just had a 55-year-old man who PR'd by 10 minutes.
In a crazy downpour race in Columbus.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's just oh man, what was my point though there?
Sorry. To that most training cycles.
Yeah, this is a really important point. So if you just go to Hal Higman or Jeff Galloway or Gallowalk's plans, and you get these plans, or a Runner's World plan or something like that, they a good plan. This is how physiologists are trained. That the plan is expecting you to really only complete it about 80%. So
you don't tell people that, because procrastinators like me are now going to be like, I only have to get to 80%.
Yeah, but so you don't have to be so hung up on by doing everything exactly the way it should be, because actually those runners that do that actually are the ones that often fail the most. You don't want to squeeze. You don't want to do everything perfect. This should be a non-stressful thing. It should just be fun and exciting, and Yeah, if you have to take a day off, that's cool, but just plan accordingly and just understand that try to take no more than 2 days off in a row, and try to, if you have to take a week or two off for an injury or sickness, like then just don't jump right back into the volume it suggests, scale it back. That's, I think, the most important thing, because most people make that error and they try to force it. And that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where all the injuries come from.
Now, what if you have people who, again, they're just getting a little bit beat up? They're not injured, but they're definitely a little worse for the wear getting to the last 3-4 weeks of training here. What would you recommend to those people that, after a run, maybe they're a little bit extra sore for the rest of the day or the next day, and then they're fine?
This might be a longer answer than you would want, but it's important to understand what is an injury and what's just soreness. So an injury is actually something that, alters your running gait. You run different because of the pain. Even if I only run different for 10 minutes and then it warms up and I feel better. Well, that's an injury. That's something you should obviously focus on. So get that treated. Typically, if you're just beat up and you're just not so recovered and you just know your legs are just dead, or you're just not sleeping well and something's happening, well, then in those instances, then you should have a talk with your coach, or consider your plan and scale back the volume, and maybe think about leaning into different recovery measures like cross training a little bit more, maybe biking or elliptical, something to just keep the cardio up and not the pounding on the legs from running. Running is more demanding than biking and elliptical by, basically you have to bike 5 times more than running on for it to equate to the same output. So it's important to understand that those are just easier measures.